Transitions are one of the things that are different in triathlon from other sports. Sometimes transition is referred to as the fourth discipline. It seems quite complicated, but once you know what to do and what order to do it, it's not that difficult. Here's our guide to the correct way to do transitions. Here we see Stephen coming to set up his transition as if it were for a race. He'll have already put his bike into the correct gear for the first part of the cycle course. It's a good idea not to have your bike in top gear, because you may find that you're jumping onto your bike and you have a slight uphill at the transition area, so you want to make sure it's in a gear that's easy enough for you to cycle in that first section of the bike course. Stephen is just checking that his number belt fits okay, and then he's placing it on the handlebars of his bike. He'd do this if it was a non-wetsuit swim, for example a triathlon where the swim is in a swimming pool, or where there's a warm lake where you don't need a wetsuit. Normally, with a wetsuit swim, you would just wear your number belt underneath your wetsuit. Then he takes his helmet. First of all, he just checks that everything's working well, the clips are not broken, that there's no entanglement of the straps, and then he places it onto his handlebars in the correct direction so that he'll be able to easily put it on when he comes out of the water. If you don't have triathlon bars like on Stephen's bike, it's still possible to place your helmet onto the handlebars. You can use one of the straps to loop it over the brake lever, and that generally holds it in a position where you're easily able to access it. If you've got sunglasses that you're going to wear, you can put them just inside your helmet, and remember that you've got to put those on first before putting your helmet on. Get your running shoes, put any talcum powder into the shoes to help them slip on easily. And then make sure the tongue is pulled out and well out of the way so it doesn't get caught up inside the shoe when you're slipping your foot in as quickly as you can during your transition. We can see here that Stephen's got his distinctive towel, so he'll be able to see that easily as he comes into transition. If you've got a drinks bottle that you want to take for the run section, then you can put that down beside your running shoes and also your running cap. The best thing to do with your cycling shoes is to have them already fitted onto your pedals. Put some talcum powder into them again to make them slip on easily. And then you can use your elastic bands just to hold the shoes up away from the ground. Put the elastic band through the loop at the back of the shoe and then hook it over a part of the bike machinery that's close to hand. The elastic bands will break as soon as you start pedaling. Once you've got all your equipment laid out, you can put your bin in a position where you can put any equipment that you've finished with, for example your wetsuit and goggles and your bike helmet at the end of the bike section, into that bin. Lois runs towards her bike. She takes off her goggles and cap first of all, and then she undoes the top half of her wetsuit. If she's got a long run into the bike, she'll probably be able to pull the wetsuit down to her waist before she even reaches her bike. She gets her wetsuit down to her waist. Then she pulls it down over the lower half of her body. She's able to stand on the wetsuit and get most of the wetsuit off. If you don't have specialist bike shoes that clip onto your bike pedals, then you should put on the shoes that you're going to use in the race, in the transition. Then you put on your helmet, and it's very important that your helmet is on and clipped before you touch your bike. In most races, they'll want you to keep your transition area nice and tidy, so this is where your bin comes in, and you can pop your wetsuit, hat and goggles into the bin so they're out of the way of other competitors. Once your helmet's safely on, you can take hold of your bike and run towards the mount line. You're not normally allowed to ride your bike in transition area at triathlon, so you have to walk or run towards the line where you're allowed to get onto your bike. The far the easiest way of pushing your bike is by holding it by the saddle, as we see Lois doing here. This works much better than pushing your bike with the handlebars. You have more control over the bike, and also you're able to stand up straight and run more easily. So once you've crossed the line where you're allowed to get onto your bike, you shift your hands to the handlebars and just hop onto the saddle of your bike. You're already in a good gear, so you're able to pedal off nice and easily. Here we see Stephen running in bare feet because his bike shoes are already on the bike. He's able to jump onto the bike and he puts his feet down on top of his bike shoes and pedals off and gets up to speed while his feet are still out of his shoes. As soon as he gets to a quieter part of the course, ideally a very slight downhill, he'll be able to freewheel and put his feet into his shoes quite easily without wasting any time. It's much quicker to do this than to put your shoes on in transition, Stephen will be moving along at a reasonable speed while he's putting his feet into his shoes. It's also much easier to run in bare feet than it is to run in a conventional bike shoe, which has a cleat on the bottom of it. Running around in those shoes on tarmac is quite dangerous. As you approach the end of the bike, you take your feet out of your bike shoes and put your bare feet on top of the shoe and pedal in that way. This means that as you approach the dismount line, you are able to step off your bike in your bare feet and get hold of the bike by the saddle and then run it towards the area where you're going to rack your bike. As Stephen gets off the bike, you'll see that he brings his right leg through the inside of his left leg, so it's a more natural running action. It's quite common for people to find it more natural for them to bring the foot around the back. But if you do that at speed, you'll find that you do tend to fall over your own feet. So push your bike towards the racking area by the saddle. If you can rack the bike straight ahead as Stephen's done here, then that's quicker than having to turn it around. Again, you must have your bike helmet clipped until the point when your hands leave your bike. As soon as you've let go of your bike, you can take your helmet off, and do this as you're bending down to get your running shoes. Then you can place your helmet on the ground next to your running shoes. Take your shoes and slip them on. You can get hold of the tongue with one hand and use the fingers of the other hand at the back, a little bit like a shoehorn, to make sure that the shoes go on nice and easily. Then all you have to do is grab any liquid that you're taking with you and your running cap, and you can set off on the run. Remembering to turn your number belt round to the front so that the timekeepers can see who you are as you leave the transition.